Welcome back, bienvenue, and all that jazz. It's time to talk about some books. Or in particular, today I'm going to be talking about the handful of books that I would like to get to in the month of December. I'm mainly continuing on that train of mostly wrapping up new series, but then again, I'm also starting to, I don't know, we're just reading things. We're reading whatever we feel like reading in December. So let's just start right off. So the first thing I'd like to continue with is I'd like to continue my reread of The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. So I read The Fellowship of the Ring in November, and so in December it's time for The Two Towers. And for some reason, The Two Towers I remember the least. I remember a lot of what happens in Return of the King, and I remember a lot of what happens in Fellowship, but Two Towers, I obviously know the big plot points, because I don't know how many times I've reread these books, but you want to know what? I love them, so... And this is my first time ever doing Lord of the Rings on audio. I've been listening to the Andy Serkis narration, and it is friggin' phenomenal. The passion that comes across, the different characters, the character voices, the characterizations, it's all... the cadence, he's just so phenomenal and clearly has so much love for this world, and it just oozes out of the audiobook. It feels like you're sitting around the campfire listening to somebody tell you some like mythological tale. It's that good. So if you have never read Lord of the Rings and you like audiobooks, you should definitely check out the ones by Andy Serkis, because they are so good. And I can't wait to continue with Lord of the Rings. And so this is probably one of my number one priorities in December, just because it brings me such happy joy, and I want more. Then it's finally time for me to continue on my Wheel of Time journey. So I read Knife of Dreams, which is book 11, back in January. I have a full spoiler-filled discussion video of that, so if you want thoughts on how Knife of Dreams went for me, I'll link that wherever. But I was talking to Angela from Literature Science Alliance and Stephanie from Miss Richards Reads, and they're both been doing this like Wheel of Time read-along together. And so I decided that would be the motivation that I needed to continue, since I haven't picked up a new Wheel of Time book since January, and we're now talking about December reading plans. And I just want to finish off the series. I only have 3 books left. This is the first of the Brandon Sanderson kind of conclusion novels, because Robert Jordan unfortunately passed after writing book 11, and the last 3 books in the series were completed by Brandon Sanderson using Robert Jordan's notes and conversations with Robert Jordan's wife, who also was his editor. Something along those lines. But I saw some upward trajectory in the Knife of Dreams. It still wasn't my favorite. Crossroads of Twilight really broke me, and my love or not love of Wheel of Time. And so I'm excited to get back into this world. I've been watching some YouTube recaps from, I want to say it's called like Wheel of Time Lore or something, where they have like 20-ish minute recaps of every book, because I'm like, wow, I haven't read one of these in a year. And I started book 1 maybe almost 2 years ago. It's been a long journey. It's been a journey. And I'm excited to continue, cautiously optimistic, because I do really love Brandon Sanderson, and I'm hoping that he hits it out of the park for me. I know most people really like his continuations of Wheel of Time, and they say that it really brought back the series for them, and so I'm hoping it does the same thing for me. We can only dream, though, right? Then, in various places, I was doing the end of the year book tag, and so on my list of 3 books I'd really like to try by the end of the year are the next 2 books that I'm going to talk about. So the first of those is Jade City by Fonda. This is book 1 in the Greenbone Saga. I've heard everybody and their mom and their grandma and the overly sassy alligator in the pond out back have all loved Jade City, and they love the Greenbone Saga. And I feel like I'm one of the last people ever to not have tried it, so I'm going to give it a shot. I hear Mafia, and I go, ooh. I hear like Godfather comparisons, ooh. But we'll see what happens. The worst that happens is I don't like it, and it's just not for me, and that's okay. It's something about Jade is somehow linked into the magic, and there are these families that control Jade, and it's like inter-family drama. I have no idea. We'll see how it goes. Wish me luck. I hope it's everything and more that everybody else thinks, but I'm going in with my expectations pretty low, because me and Mafia, we're not friends. Then one of the other books that I had on that list that I would like to finish to try by the end of the year is I'd like to finally start the Winnowing Flame trilogy. So obviously, like many, I heard about this trilogy first from my friend Elle from Elliot Brooks, and this is one of her favorite series. She screams about it all the time, to the point where a like small bookish company made special editions of this book, and like she's been very influential in bringing Winnowing Flame to the West, if you will. Because it was originally like only in the UK. I don't know. It's very confusing. It's being published in the US at the very beginning of next year. I don't really know. It's being published in the US, so you can definitely get your hands on these more easily now than you could previously. It seems like it's some kind of weird genre-bendy thing where there's some kind of catastrophe in the world that these elven-like beings know and have the lore about how to deal with it, but they have been dying out, and maybe that threat is coming back. The elves are also vampire-like. I don't really know. It sounds very interesting, very fascinating, and I'm intrigued, and I have obviously been hearing Al shout about it forever, and it's time. It's time for me to give it a shot, because I own the first two. Yeah, I own the first two books in this trilogy. It is a completed trilogy. We all love it. So hopefully I love this and can just continue on with it in January and February and knock this one off the list. Then everything else on my TBR is stuff that I either own in ebook or audiobook or what have you. So the first thing that I'd like to continue with is I'd like to read The Oleander Sword by Miss Tasha Suri. This is book 2 in the Burning Kingdoms trilogy. I read Jasmine Throne in November? October? I don't know. I read it recently and loved it. It was so surprising. The magic had these weird elements of body horror. It was very cool nature magic that you don't see very much. It was Indian based. It was like, by which I mean it was based on like Indian mythology. And it was kind of slow burn at the beginning, but then it really ramped up towards the end. It's kind of this exciting tale of rising up against the Empire. You all know I'm a sucker for that trope. We love it. But it also had this kind of slow burn sapphic romance, but it was by no means like fantasy romance. It was very much a subplot. It had really compelling characters with really fascinating backstories, and I just really got sucked into it. It was amazing, and so I really want to try book 2, and hopefully book 3, the conclusion of the trilogy, will come out next year, so I can just keep going because it's amazing. If you want more deets on the Jasmine Throne, I have a full spoiler-free dedicated review that I'll link for you, so you can check that out if you want more information. So then the last couple that I'm going to talk about, I know even less than I knew about those other books. I just have them because they sounded exciting. And so the first thing that I'm going to talk about is I got an early copy of Song of Silver, Flame Like Night by Amelie Wen Zhao, which she wrote like the Blood Heir. One second. She wrote the Blood Heir duology, I want to say, which I didn't read. It was maybe like Anastasia inspired. I'm not totally sure. This one looks much more Chinese inspired, and so I'm here for it. I've been loving all of the cool Chinese, Korean, Japanese folklore retellings that we've been seeing pop up lately. And I think this one may be YA. Don't quote me on that. I really don't know. In a fallen kingdom, one girl carries the key to discovering the secrets of her nation's past and unleashing the demons that sleep at its heart. An epic fantasy series inspired by the mythology and folklore of ancient China. Once Lan had a different name, now she goes by the one the Elantian colonizers gave her when they invaded her kingdom, killed her mother, and outlawed her people's magic. She spends her nights as a song girl in Hak Gong, a city transformed by the conquerors, and her days scavenging for what she can find of the past. Anything to understand the strange mark burned into her arm by her mother in her last act before she died. The mark is mysterious, an untranslatable hidden character, and no one but Lan can see it, until the night a boy appears at her tea house and saves her life. There's more to it than that. It's a very long description, but it just sounds cool. I mean, I'm here for some Chinese folklore. Just sounds like a fun adventure romp. Then I've recently read the Vagrant Gods, or at least the 2 books that are currently out in the Vagrant Gods trilogy, so that would be the Bladed Faith, and I recently read the Sapphire Altar, and I loved them both. I think maybe I liked the Sapphire Altar slightly more than the Bladed Faith because the Bladed Faith was more focused on a kind of coming of age time period, whereas the Sapphire Altar kind of dug more into the lore kind of this world and the larger world for me personally. And I have a spoiler-free review video of the Bladed Faith that I'll link for you, and I'm planning to do a spoiler-free / spoiler-filled chat type video for the Sapphire Altar coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, because I've been having so much fun with David Dalglish's works, I wanted to try one of his earlier works, so I was talking to the author over on the Twitter, and he recommended that I try his Soul Keeper, or the Keepers trilogy, and so I have the first book in that he kindly sent to me, and so we're going to give it a go, because I really have enjoyed his writing. It's a lot of fun, so let's see. Devon Evison is a soul keeper, traveling through remote villages as a preacher and healer. But when a dragon awakens the size of a mountain and leaving great chasms in its wake, the veil is torn, flooding the land with ancient magic and forgotten races. Now Devon must set aside his words of peace and accept his new role, slayer of monsters and protector of the human race. But not all the creatures that have reawakened mean humanity harm, and as Devon slowly befriends people of these new races, his discomfort in his role grows. But soul keepers must slay without mercy, and even sympathizers risk their wrath. We all love a good, fun little monster hunter type romp. It just sounds like very epic fantasy, ripping open, allowing new fantasy races back in. Okay. Then, in a similar vein, I read Dragon Mage back in January, and it's still one of my favorite books I've read this entire year. And so, I wanted to try to read some of that author, M.L. Spencer's previous works. And so, I have the entire Rhenwars Saga, which I believe is her first self-published series that she put out. So, it's complete. I want to say it's like 5 books. Don't quote me, but it just sounds like fun. I really loved her neuroatypical representation. I loved that it wasn't a story focused on romance. It was focused on platonic relationships. I loved all of that stuff. And so I'm hoping that I get kind of more of that in the Rhenwars. But I really have no idea what it's about. So, the Well of Tears is open, and the terror of the night has been unleashed. Now, the last sentinel left alive with the power to defend his world against the minions of the Netherworld is a man destined to be corrupted into the image of what he hates. In the name of duty, Darian Lachlan will see oaths forsaken, crowns toppled, friends sacrificed, and the land he loves desecrated. For there's a very thin line between duty and brutal inhumanity. Well, we'll give her a shot, shall we? I mean, it's like 62 hours in audiobook form for the entire series. So maybe I'll get through the whole series in December. Maybe I'll just love it and be swept up in it because I need that in my life. So send me all the positive vibes that ends up happening for me. And then the final thing that we'll see, it's kind of like if I have time / the motivation or oomph to kind of go back to it. And that would be The Forgetting Moon by Mr. Brian Lee Durfee. That is book 1 in the 5 Warrior Angels trilogy. Book 3 just released recently, right? Like today or yesterday when I'm filming. So the final book in that trilogy is out, and a lot of people seem to love this series. And one of Brian Lee Durfee's inspirations / favorite series is A Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire. And we all know how I feel about A Song of Ice and Fire. It's fantastic. And so I feel like, I don't know if I was still just kind of slumpy from COVID times or what the deal was, but it just wasn't totally clicking with me. And I kind of put it down for now. And at the 30% mark back in October, and I think I'm ready to give it another shot and see if I can push through to the end and hopefully have a good reading experience with it. It is very classic fantasy vibes, very like chosen one feeling. It's definitely starting with a slow burn, kind of introducing a wide cast of characters in a very complex world in all of these different continents and these different conflicts. And there's like one kind of empire-esque type people kind of waging war and taking places that aren't their own. And there's like sneaky assassins and cool magic. Like the prologue was phenomenal. So I just hope that I get sucked in. It was just very much one of those things that like there was a particular scene that just the description of an overweight woman just repeatedly, just like for no real reason in my mind, it just like set me off for some reason. I was like, screw this book. So then I just didn't continue at the time. And I was also doing it purely in audio, and I was having a hard time keeping track of who's who and what's what and where's where, because it is very grandiose fantasy with all of its own words and all of the challenges and joys that come along with that. So I'm hoping that maybe in December I can get the physical book from my library and maybe immersion read, because that worked really well for me for Game of Thrones. I don't know. We'll see. But that's kind of if I have time. And that concludes all of the things that I'm hoping to get to in the month of December. It's pretty ambitious, but I do tend to get the week between Christmas and New Year's off from lab. And so maybe I'll have a lot of reading time and just feel really inspired and read even more than this. Only time will tell. But have you read any of these books? Do you think I should prioritize any of them over others? Please let me know in the comments down below, or let me know some of the books that you hope to get to in the month of December. I always love to hear from you. If you want to just leave an emoji and you've made it this far, maybe leave like a snowflake or something since it's December, or something Christmassy, whatever floats your boat. But that will do it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for more bookish shenanigans like this from moi. Other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!